Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely. Pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 240 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And before we get to my guest this week, Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage, I want to remind you about all of the features of MistressCarrie.com. You can listen to every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast and watch every episode of my weekly streaming video show, Cocktails in the War Room. You can read my blog, get the info on all of the rock shows coming through New England in the concert calendar, send me a message right here in the studio, and shop in the online Mistress Carrie store. Get all of that and more at MistressCarrie.com. Jesse Leach is the lead vocalist of Killswitch Engage, who are getting ready to release their new album, This Consequence, on February 21st. They're also heading out on a headlining tour that's going to stop at the Cross Insurance Arena in Portland, Maine on April 12th. Jesse and I were both born and raised in the Northeast. So, of course, we talked about everything from ball busting to AI to German beer, his pet cats, and his love of Iron Maiden. I was so happy that Jesse accepted my invitation to come on the show. So, allow me to introduce you to Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage. Hello, Mr. Leach. Thank you for coming on the show. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. It's an honor and a pleasure as someone who grew up listening to you on HJY.
Oh, no, AAF. I was on AAF back in the day.
Sorry, AAF. I meant AAF. Sorry.
I haven't seen you since those old AAF days.
Yeah, that's the Rhode Island in me coming out, not the Massachusetts. That's a funny slip, actually.
It's hilarious. And what's crazy is that when you look at the New England radio scene that we grew up in, we were so lucky.
We were so lucky. Yeah, I agree. Because you personally exposed me to music I wouldn't have normally listened to, and AAF was that station back when radio really did something with that stuff. Like, it really did matter back then, and we were very lucky. Between Massachusetts and Rhode Island, some of the greatest radio hosts and radio stations for sure back then.
Just all of New England is such a weird media area because there's so many big cities that are so close together that we have the ability to kind of get exposed to different radio stations. We have so many concert venues that if you're willing to drive within 3 hours, you can be in all 6 New England states and stalk your favorite band when they go on tour because you could see them multiple times.
Which was also great growing up and being in a band. You could play those areas in a weekend, go to New Hampshire, go to Connecticut, Rhode Island, and you're done. And I grew up doing a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it was interconnected and oftentimes very incestuous with the members and stuff.
Where did you grow up exactly? Because obviously Killswitch is known as a Western Mass band.
Yeah. So I grew up all over, but high school on, to my impressionable years was Cranston, Rhode Island.
Cranston, Rhode Island.
Just outside of Providence. So for people who know Rhode Island, if you drove past the Blue Bug going south, the next exit down is where I lived, just outside of Providence in a place called Cranston. Look it up. It's a fun little town.
I always ask artists when they come on the show, because most of the time they're from a place I'm not familiar, that if I were to come to your hometown, where would you take me for like the towny experience. So even though I grew up in the Northeast, where in Cranston are you taking me to show me where you grew up?
It depends what time of day, but oftentimes if you're going out, it's usually after the bars. And there's a place that we would always go to, 2 a.m. You're slightly drunk. If you're driving, you shouldn't be, but if you're slightly buzzed on alcohol, you're coming out of the clubs. We'd always go down to New York style hot wieners, and you get 3 hot wieners that they put them on the arms with the buns and the hot wieners, and it was 3 all the way. So get the wieners with the meat sauce and the onions and mustard and a coffee milk, and you choke that down, and then you go to bed and you wake up the next day and all your breath and your farts for the next couple of days is hot wieners. That was the tradition for us.
Even though I grew up in Massachusetts and my grandmother grew up in Boston, she made me coffee milk when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
Like
autocrat.
Yeah, the autocrat, and it's a very Rhode Island thing, but there are, I don't know where she got it from, but I loved coffee milk as a kid.
Oh yeah, I still love it. I used to go back home to visit family and buy it and bring it back up where I live in New York now. It's addictive.
Yeah, it's delicious. So you live in upstate New York now. Do they have it there?
No, you can't find it anywhere. No, it's better off though. It's really not good for you. It's just sugar.
Is anything that we grew up eating and drinking as a kid really good for us?
No, but look at us. We're still alive and kicking and not bitching about it.
That is a fact. I was trying to tell somebody a little while ago, I was taking some people sightseeing around Boston. Do you remember the late night like roast beef and burger place that was down at the old jail that's now the Liberty Hotel?
No, I never went to that place. No.
So it's funny, those places you go to after the bars are closed, right? And the Liberty Hotel in Boston is this super fancy, expensive, bougie hotel. And it's all based around the concept of a jail, to the point where the bar is called Alibi. The old cells are where you hang out, and it's filled with celebrity mugshots. But when I went to college in Boston, it was a jail.
Yeah.
And there was one of those all night, you're too drunk burger and roast beef places. And they used to sell you a burger and you could buy a second one half price and huck them at the inmates hanging their arms out the bars. And so there were all these drunk college kids hucking burgers at these inmates in this jail in Boston. And now it's like $800 a night to stay there.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens to a lot of cities and towns. So the wealthy people come in, the entrepreneurs, and they flip around an old dump and make it better.
Yeah.
But, there's a part of me that I love grimy stuff. It's funny. I was over in Europe a couple of years ago and went into this metal bar, and the smell of stale beer and stale piss and graffiti everywhere. And I walked in and it was like, this feels like home.
Yeah. It smells like the Rat.
Yes, the Rat. Oh my God. Yes. I remember the last show I saw at the Rat, the pipe had burst. Sewage pipe had burst, and they put sawdust all over the floor. And when the pit started up, it was just this big dust bowl, and everyone had to put bandanas over their nose. Yeah, the Rat was a grimy little place.
For anybody listening, the Rat was Boston's CBGB's. Mm-hmm. Like the basement, dirty, don't touch anything bar, but everybody played there.
Yeah, and the shows were violent.
I wanted to talk to you about this because it comes up on the show all the time. And obviously you'll understand because you're a Northeastern person, the concept of being nice and kind. Because so many people think that because we're from the Northeast, we are such assholes. And in a lot of ways, I'm willing to accept that we are. But the idea of being nice and kind and how different those two things are, it was explained to me that if you're like on the West Coast and you get a flat tire, a nice person will stop and tell you how bad they feel for you and then leave. Whereas a kind Northeastern person will pull over, bust your balls for tying up traffic, and then push you out of the way and change your tire for you.
That you just nailed it right there. Bust your balls. Nothing happens with any sort of kindness at all until you are made known of your idiocracy, like what you did wrong, and you got to know why. Yeah, I love that. But I think to me, that's comforting. As a band, like like us, where we're, privileged to travel the world, there'll be times when we're across the globe and we hear someone pronounces something a certain way, and that accent, that New England accent's there, and you just gravitate. If you're at a bar, you gravitate to those people, and you just want them to bust your balls so you can feel like you're home. It's such a fun, nice feeling. I love it. I grew up with that stuff.
It is really hilarious that the joke is like, how do you know someone's from Boston? Because they'll tell you, and it is so funny how tribal and how loyal we are, which goes back to the tribes of the people that followed the radio stations and fans. And obviously Killswitch Engage fans are so passionate and so loyal, but it comes from that suffering together, bust your balls kind of mentality that the Northeast has that a lot of other places just don't understand. They think we're crazy.
It's true. And then, a lot of times the great thing, and it does happen specifically in Northeast, fans that will come up to us and tell us that they were with us when we only played in front of 25 people. And they love talking about the pain and suffering. And I think that's, to me, it's kind of a badge of honor. We got through this together, us as fans and us as the band, to get where we are now. And I think that is in our blood, but that's a badge of pride. Hard work pays off, and that's the New England spirit. That working class, blue collar mentality has not left me to this day. And I have these inner voices. It reminds me of Bill Burr, one of my favorite comedians. I always have these voices in the back of my head when I'm getting ready to complain about something, or if I feel cold, or if my feelings got hurt over something. It's that New England voice of like telling me just to shut up. Like, I can't say what Bill Burr does, but you know what I mean? Like that idea of like, just buck up, like stop being a little wimp.
Oh, you can swear. You're fine.
No, what Bill Burr says is not a swear word. It's the F word, the other F word. But we grew up with that mentality of like just this stiff upper lip and like your suffering is a badge of pride, but don't talk about it. Just get through it and find your success. And I don't know, that attitude is as dysfunctional as it is to some people. It's the reason why a lot of us became successful, because of that push to just continue stiff upper lip and just keep fighting and get through your 80-hour work week and still go out and play a show with your band. Like that's what I had to do at one point in my life.
Are you the same way that I am, that there is nothing more motivating than someone telling me no?
Oh yeah, I hate that. And I hate being told what to do. So for me, a big motivator for me was working all these jobs with these bosses, these people that I'm like, ugh. And one day I just don't want anyone to tell me what to do. So when I got into a band and we finally, caught some success, it was like, oh, we're out here on the road. That freedom you feel, like that was worth it, because I can't stand when people tell me what to do.
And it is that it's something that I have only learned since WAAF got sold and taken off the air, because I had to start my own company and kind of launch everything myself. And that idea of that freedom, but also if you fuck up, you have to own it, because there's no one else to blame but you.
Yeah. Yeah. The buck stops with you, period. And that makes you, it makes you work harder. I love it. Yeah. It's in our blood.
Yeah, it really is. One of the things I love about being able to do these kind of more long form interviews with podcasting and all of this new technology is that I get to see the personal spaces of my guests, because normally you'd either be in the studio with me or we'd be on the phone. So I am assuming that you are at home and this is kind of your creative space. Am I right?
Yeah, this is my studio / I guess you could call it office. I don't like to use that word, but yeah, it's my studio. It's where I come to write, where I come to, correspond, do emails, print out things, sit. My piano's behind me. If you open up those shades, there's a mountain there and a stream. So I do my writing there. I do a lot of my vocal writing on piano. So yeah, this is my little space in my house that I use to be creative.
I think it's so hilarious. And again, there's the similarity of how we grew up, that when I built my studio, I have a window that overlooks my flowers and my vegetable garden. It's like we have to have this hardcore workspace, but I need the nature.
Oh, yeah. No, nature's huge for me. It keeps me sane. And I moved even further out recently. Like you have to drive 20 minutes, I should say, 20 minutes straight to get gas station, store, anything. We're like, you don't even have self-service out here. But to me, I can just walk out my door and go that way for a half hour and I won't see a single person and it's just quiet. And I need that to stay sane, especially when I get off tour. Then that's the thing too. I used to pay all kinds of money to rent properties up here, to vacation up here. And I'm like, what am I doing? So now I just live up here. It's cheaper.
Yeah. And the way technology is, being in a band 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible for everybody to live in different places, but technology has made it so that the band members can live where they're happiest and still be able to be creative and collaborate with the other band members, keep the band together. That wasn't possible a couple decades ago.
No, yeah, you had to meet up and rehearse 3 times a week. And, and I grew up, again, in Rhode Island. My bands were in Massachusetts. So my drive, I just drive 70 miles to go to rehearsal for Killswitch Engage. I dedicated myself to that. And it's great that we do have technology, but I will say this. We got together for the writing of this record was the first time in, 20 years where the 5 of us got in a room and jammed and like actually jammed out stuff and wrote stuff in a room together. And I got to tell you, that feeling, that vibe was just a game changer. And any band that's a touring unit that doesn't do that, I highly recommend revisiting that feeling of 5 guys, a couple of beers and some riffs and just hashing out songs. What a cool feeling. But technology has afforded us where we just email each other demos and we work on them on our own and send it back and forth. And then, yeah, I'll see you on tour. We wrote our demo. And that's cool. It's efficient, but it's such a different vibe, and 20 years ago, yeah, you could not get away with that. You had to show up or you'd get fired. You no tolerate if somebody doesn't show up to rehearsals.
It is interesting how technology has made so many things more convenient, but it can never replace AI. Anything can never replace that collaborative energy of the 5 of you getting in a room and just doing it old school.
Yeah. And AI, I'm glad you mentioned AI. I'm not a fan. It kind of freaks me out, and like not like I'm afraid of it, although probably I should be because we've all seen Terminator. But as far as like using that to make your art, I don't get it, man. Like the pride that you feel, going back to how we were raised, the pride you feel in putting in hard work to create something like that is everything. And if you look at our album artwork for this new record when it comes out, it's a bunch of robots look like they're destroyed, like post-apocalyptic. Those are actual sculptures made by an artist that we put out. Well, Mike, our designer, put out and took photographs of. So all of our artwork is real. It's real sculptures, real photography, but it looks AI nowadays. Like you probably could type in a couple of words and get that. But the word, to me, the human element is what makes art. I'm not opposed to using it as a tool, but to, have that sort of take the place of an artist. It's really sad that people are doing that and allowing that to happen. And I think it's weird. You can kind of tell when it's AI, right? Like it's just not right.
Well, especially human faces. The human eye has an unbelievable ability to be able to look at a human face, either an image or in person, and you can tell, something tells you that is photoshopped or that image is AI. And you can also tell if someone surgically changed their face, like something tells you that it just is a little off.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because as AI gets better and better, there is going to be certain things that we inherently will be able to pick up on. But yeah, I mean, when you watch like AI videos made by an AI generator, like there's a creepy element to it because it's not quite human,
yes.
Right? But it's close.
It's close. Weird. And what I think is really interesting when people talk about AI, and you mentioned Terminator, right? Like they talk about it as if it's inventing all of this stuff itself. And all it is, as of now, is just really fast Googling. That it's just taking all of the creativity that humans have made in the past and absorbing it all and pulling it all out in different configurations. But it's referencing real stuff that humans made, which is why artists, there's going to be this big, huge licensing thing with all of these AI companies because they're writing music that is referencing copywritten material, including your music.
Yeah, there's a fine line there for sure. And what is it, like 3 notes? There's a 3-note difference with copyright laws. But I hate to say it, but I think the intelligence is there that people are going to get away with it until you start sort of digitally marking when things are being created, which goes into blockchain, which goes into all that crazy stuff. At the end of the day, to me, I'm always going to be the guy that I love, plugging in an guitar into an amplifier, turning it up, someone getting behind a drum set and just setting down a beat and going for it and hearing the flaws of the voice. I mean, listen, metal's got to be polished. I get it. Killswitch is a very produced, polished band. But if you were to ask me as a listener what I like, most of the vocalists I dig on, like Tom Waits, for example, one of my favorite vocalists of all time. The guy sounds like he's choking on glass and sandpaper, and what a beautiful sound that is to me, and the emotion he gets out when he's doing that. You can't, AI, whatever, you cannot replace the flaws of the human element. And that's, to me, what I think is going to separate the art from the artist moving forward, is hearing those flaws in the music. You could reference AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, just on three bands. You can hear the flaws in their playing, and the songs wouldn't swing the same that they do. The voice wouldn't be the same. The squeaky pedal in some Led Zeppelin songs or Sabbath songs where it's slightly off and you're waiting for the downbeat. Like, that's the shit that people are going to continue to cherish no matter what AI does to music.
You're not the first artist to bring up how important the imperfections in rock and roll are. I mean, you can reference all of the mistakes you can hear in Beatles music, and that is held as this gold standard of rock and roll. And there is a danger. Do you guys have that conversation with Killswitch? Because you did say how polished of a band you are. Do you guys have that conversation of when to stop making it too perfect?
Yeah, no, it's a constant thing, because we do what you hear on the record we're playing. We don't do the whole keyboards, and there's no trickery as far as that's concerned. We're getting the best performance that we can. And I think the proof of that too is going to see a band live. And you can pull it off with computers, but there's no backtracking. There's none of that. We're still a rock band. So when you come see Killswitch live, what you're hearing with your ears is what is happening with 5 humans. And that doesn't always happen in music. I hate to say it, but that is something that we're very cognitive of. If it's on the record, we've got to be able to produce that live. So if you hear it on the record, there's got to be a way to put that to an audience. If not, then it doesn't belong on the record. That's just with Killswitch. Like, it's polished and like we do as much takes as we can to make sure it sounds amazing. But when you come see us live, you're going to hear, hopefully, somewhat CD quality with a little bit of flaws here and there, depending on how tired we are from tour or how many drinks somebody's had. But those are elements, I think, that make live performance exciting. You don't see the same set every night, and that's definitely the case with us too.
You're talking about the new record. It's called This Consequence. It comes out on February 21st. You talk about multiple takes. What track on the record had the most takes?
That's a good question. Wow, it's such a blur. It's hard to. I can tell you what had the least amount of takes. Song called Aftermath, which I wrote. So Justin, our drummer, wrote the music to that, the demo, sent it over to me. I wrote it and recorded the demo in a half hour. So by the time we got, and Adam liked it, we barely changed anything. So by the time we got to the studio, we just knocked that thing out. It was so quick. Maybe The Fall of Us, which is sort of the death metal song on that record. It's the longest song. It even has like a quiet sort of melodic, creepy break in between. But there was a lot of like really fast-paced vocals and, death metal stuff going on there. So maybe that one.
Anybody that knows me and listens to the show knows that I have zero musical ability and lack the ability to craft songs. So I'm so envious. And I know that they're 2 completely different skill sets. That you can be a great musician but not be able to write songs, and you can be an amazing songwriter and not be able to play anything. I've heard songwriting described as like being able to grab the song kind of out of the ether and like be the conduit for it. Is that how you feel about it?
Well, I see 100%, 100% that's the case. Because when I'm done with something and I'm like, how? Like to me, I'm not sort of going like, yeah, of course. Like the ego thing, I never will understand that with artists. If you're a true artist, there has to be a humility there. We are tapping into something outside of us. I completely believe that because I have ideas that drop out of the sky. I'll wake up out of a sound sleep and the idea is clear as day. And it feels to me like, I mean, it came from my brain, I guess, but not in a million years would I have thought this idea. And I'm sitting there writing it down or, singing it into my phone at 3 a.m. And I have no idea where it came from. So to me, that happened all the time. So I can't take full credit for it. And I think anybody who's humble enough to realize that you can't, like, it's from the collective and we're all inspired by something. Like you were talking about how AI gathers all information from everything that's already been done. Musicians do the same thing. You think you're coming up with something new, but inherently it's tied to something that's already been done. Your take on it or what's being fed to you might be a different spin on it, but it comes from something, whether that be, other human beings' ideas or something else that's outside of us. I think it might be twofold now that I've said that. But that's the beauty of the brain and creativity and not completely understanding how creativity works. Because I think creativity taps into that magic of humanity. Like when someone tries to describe to you what God is, to me, that's in the same vein as creativity. It's just, how do you explain that? There's really no way to like give you a fact, like human fact, this is how creativity works. No, I don't think any science can answer that. Scientist can answer that with a period on the sentence because there's what else are we doing in here? How much of our brain do we actually use? And what happens when we sleep at night, et cetera, et cetera.
They still haven't been able to chart it. I mean, we're walking around with this big squishy thing in our head and we don't even have a clue as to how it works.
Right, exactly.
It's like the ocean, except it's in our own head. It's very I was having this conversation over the holidays about people that like get a head injury and wake up and speak a language they never spoke before, or like they have an accent for a place they've never been before. Like, how does that happen?
Or a guy who I saw this who can play piano like an expert out of nowhere. Like, I'm always just like whacking me in the head because maybe I can get a new gift. That's amazing. But yeah, to me that, and you mentioned the ocean too, which is fascinating. I was recently watching a documentary about that. I mean, we know what, 5% of our ocean, maybe, and yet we're supposedly out in space. Come on, like, what are we not? We're missing the point here. Our Earth, there's so much more to be discovered. And that's the same thing with creativity and art, which is why to me, AI is, again, bringing it back in, is just heartbreaking to me. Like, why are we doing that?
I think it's really interesting that you use old and new technology when you get inspired, because you said you're either writing the idea down on a piece of paper or you're singing it into your cell phone. I joke all the time, because Jerry Cantrell said that he sings riff ideas into his phone. And I'm like, wouldn't it be interesting to steal you guys' phones and hear there's countless unbelievable rock anthems that are just hidden in the notes in your phone right now?
Awful. It would sound like a dog barking, I'm sure, like 3 a.m, half asleep, sometimes, hungover. Ugh, awful. But yeah, I'm sure there'd be a lot of weird barking noises and stuff. But if you can understand what you're doing and the idea's there, it's a starting point. So yeah, it's pretty funny. I'd love to hear Jerry Cantrell's. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right? He's just got all of these riffs that he's singing to himself in his phone. And
yeah,
what amazing stuff is just hidden in there.
Yeah, he's a brilliant mind. I admire him very much.
How does it work with the 5 of you? You talk about getting in a room together and jamming. Is there the same process for songwriting with Killswitch Engage, or is everybody kind of throwing the ideas out? Like, tell me how it works that a song becomes a song with you guys.
Yeah, so all 4 of those guys, so I don't contribute to them musically. Like my musical sort of direction, if I were to sit and play you guitar, bass, drums, I'm more of a punk indie, maybe like trip hop vibe, simple, vibey stuff. Those guys, they're metalheads. I don't have that dexterity, so I don't contribute musically. So Mike, Justin, Joel, and Adam all submit demos or a couple of riffs and they'll say, I didn't know what to do with this, but here's the idea. Then somebody will take that idea, work on it, send it back through email. What do you think of that? The cool thing with being in the same room together was being able to do that in real time. Somebody comes with a demo, plays the song, they all learn it, they all play it. Then in real time, someone's like, that bridge part, it's not sitting right. What if we kind of just modified it and went that way with it? And then you see everybody go, oh yeah, that's cool. And then everyone plays it, and that feeling in the room is so cool. And to sit there and watch it as the vocalist, I'll just jot down words. I'll see something, I'll hear something, and then idea for the song starts to open up. So that like real-time energy is awesome. But usually prior to this album, it was getting a demo, getting a couple riffs, and then somebody working on it, and just back and forth, email. And then the demo, I got it. I'll go for a ride on my bike or in my truck and jot down stuff and start to work on it. And then I'll do my own pre-production in my little studio and send that out, and then we start working on it. So I do, again, being in the same room together, though, that was awesome. I want to do that again.
Can you talk about how important the relationship is with the band members? Because I've said this many times. I have done my own radio show for so many years. No producer, no nothing. I'm in the studio by myself. The idea of being in a room with 4 other people and having to throw out ideas that they think are bad or that vulnerability and ego check of what you guys go through to finish a song together, that is so scary to me.
Yeah, it's I have to say on this last record too was a real sort of ego death for me, because I had to throw out at least 7 or 8 of my demos, like lyrics, vocals. I think part of and you mentioned, egos. I think part of what works with Killswitch is we kind of keep each other in check. There's a real brotherhood there. And it might get uncomfortable for a second, but people come around, especially as you're writing the song and coaxing it out. You can see people sort of go, oh yeah, I think what you said makes sense. At first I didn't like it, but now like I get it. It's not about the individual when it comes to a band. Unless you're a singer-songwriter and you're doing it all on your own, that's one thing. But if you got a collective of guys that are all contributing, it's not about the one person. It's about the song, right? It's about the record. It's about the band. It's about the band. And you can lean on people's strengths. That's what you learn to do. Like, somebody's good at soloing, take the solo. If somebody's good at like the bridge part of the song, making sure that it goes into a different direction, gives you a sort of breath of fresh air, do that. Someone's good at harmonies, stick to the harmonies. We all kind of play off our strengths. Adam writes intricate metal-y, like death metal kind of stuff. Mike D tends to be more like grimy punk rock, early metalcore, like the mixing of metal and hardcore together. He comes from that school. Justin's a little more like post-rock, indie rock. Joel's got the blues. So everyone's got their own little thing that they contribute. And when they submit a demo, you can hear that. And it's cool. And I think that's also what adds to the diversity of our sound, is everybody's coming from a different point. So you kind of hear them out. You know that they're good at that one thing. So let them do that one thing. And then I'll contribute somehow with what I do. And hopefully it clicks into place and you're like, oh, there it is. That's what we needed. So it's being humble, but also playing to your strengths.
It is amazing. I read this. This is your 25th anniversary year?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, this year would be 26. 25 was last year. 26 years. Yeah.
That is so crazy. When you look at everything you guys have gone through, all the music you've created, all of the different eras of the band, like, you're eligible for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I told Jerry Horton this from Papa Roach, and technically you're also considered classic rock now, which blows my mind.
I think that's cool, man. I've always liked classic rock. That's awesome. I never thought of that, but you're right.
That's the cutoff. 25 years from the date of release gets you into the Rock Hall, and it's considered classic rock.
I think the big sort of moment when you realize that's happened is when your fans are now parents and they bring their kids who are now 12, 13, 14 years old, and they're fans. That's when you sort of know you've made it into the classic rock thing. And I welcome that. I think that's great. the fact that we've had that longevity is because of those fans who are bringing their kids to the shows now. It's a beautiful thing. If you would have told me when I was 15 years old, I'd be in a band that had a legacy like that. It's an honor. And again, you mentioned the different, the different stages we've gone through with Howard Jones coming in and out of the band, and he's still part of the family. We still have him out on stage, and it's all love. We all appreciate the fact that people still give a damn about what we do, and it's phenomenal to me that I can still jump on a plane and go across the world and play a song and do this with the microphone, and the audience has got the rest of the line. That's incredible.
And you're becoming like the soundtrack to the life of your fans. You bring up being that 15-year-old kid. I have a theory about music. There's 2 phases of your musical identity. There's the soundtrack to your childhood, the unwilling listening you did with the music you were surrounded by, right? Your parents, your older brother, your cool uncle, the neighbors. And then something happens. You hear a song, an artist, an album, and you make the conscious choice. I like that. And from then on, everything is different. So for you, what was the soundtrack to that childhood? And then what changed for you? What was it?
Oh, yeah, that's great. And that's accurate. Very accurate. You mentioned the Beatles. My dad was a huge Beatles guy. My dad grew up first and foremost as like a greaser, sort of gangster guy. And then he kind of switched into the hippie thing. And then he kind of became, no, he didn't kind of begin. He became a total like Jesus guy and became a minister. So those phases of his life, there's music to all of it. But the one thing over all that was the 60s. That's always what got him, still gets him to this day. So that would be the Beatles. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, so far, that record was on all the time when I was a kid. Simon and Garfunkel, Peter, Paul, and Mary. So that's kind of the ilk of what I was raised on. And then for me, I got into the Pearl Jams and the Stone Temple Pilots and, Metallica, Anthrax, but that was still sort of my older brother in me. But when it was like mine, when I was like, this is it, and this is, no one can touch this, this is me, that was punk rock. That was Minor Threat. That was the first band that I heard that was like, mine, absolutely blown. Didn't really understand it because it wasn't mainstream. All those bands I mentioned before, they would have been played on the radio at some point, even just college radio. Minor Threat was like underground, and it was fast. It was pissed off. It was different. And what I liked about it too is it was positive. They were saying something good, like better yourself, do better. So to me, that just hit all the things. I'm a pretty positive guy. I was raised in a pretty positive home, but I didn't like what I was raised with musically. To me, it's turned to dork music. When you're young, you're like, ugh. So Minor Threat, that's when everything changed. And then that opened the door to Black Flag, the Bad Brains, the Clash. And that was it. Gates were wide open. And then from there, especially, dating myself, it was 92, 93. From there, I started to get into European death metal, Earache Records, Obituary, Carcass, Entombed. Like that stuff started to take over. So hardcore death metal, and then the mixture of those is kind of where our scene in New England from, I'd say 92 to maybe 98 really just birthed the mixture of hardcore metal, death metal, all that mashed together. And you could go anywhere from, Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and there were bands all starting to piece that stuff together, and our scene started to explode over that.
Well, that's when I started on the air in 98, and it was like being in the middle of a cyclone.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, 98 was huge. You had bands like, I remember playing a show at Lupo's, and it was Tree, it was Kilgore, I think they were still Kilgore Smudge at the time, I'm not even sure, Crisis, Shed, Corinne, my band at the time, Corinne, and it might have been somebody else, maybe Freak Show. So like all those bands sound completely different, but we were all in the same scene. And you could go to a show back then and just see a plethora of sonic sounds, but we all identified in the same scene. It was magic. People talk about Seattle and LA. I truly believe New England, the Northeast, from I don't know, 90s into mid 2000s, we had something going on there that was different. And then you could go into like underground places like in Olneyville, Providence, and watch grindcore bands, crust bands, D-beat bands, like bands that were extreme, doing weird shit. But you had access to all of it, all of it. And I was a 15-year-old kid with a green light to go into any club I wanted to because the girl who managed my band was a bouncer. She worked the door at Club Babyhead, and nobody messed with her. She's an old school skinhead girl. So wherever I went, wherever she went, I would go. And then I just had access. So I'm going to see the Meat Men. I'm going to see Sick of It All. I'm going to see the Goth Show, like watching bands I didn't even know what was going on. People getting cigarettes put out on them on stage, like weird shit. And I loved all of it. Violent Anal Death was another band I went to go see, like just fun, Anal Cunt, all kinds of weird bands that I was just like, I want it all. And that was I call it my college years because I never went to college. I just spent 3 or 4 days a week going to shows from mostly Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, and just devouring everything I could. And that's what made me who I am as a musician. Getting into a room too with other musicians and jamming, like heavy music. Nothing was written. Pick up an instrument and like go. Like I did that for years before I realized how to write a song. And those are my formative years for sure. And it's all because of our scene in the Northeast. It was so unique.
And it was so possible, even if it wasn't your goal, you could see that it was possible that there were stations that were playing metal music, that you could end up on the second stage of Ozfest. Like there were these ways to be whatever you wanted to be and also achieve something bigger than playing in the clubs around the Northeast, that there were ways for you to get out.
Yeah, I realized that once I started to make decent money too. Like that was something that was never really in the forefront of my mind until I remember getting off stage at Club Babyhead and the owner, Jeff, taking me backstage and handing me $350 cash. And I'm like, 16 years old. And I'm like, whoa, it's possible to do this enough where like, I didn't have to work that stupid job I hated. We could actually gig on the weekends and like make enough scratch to pay rent maybe, if you're living in a squatter house with a bunch of punks. But you're right. When things like, AAF, I mentioned HJY, even BRU, the late night shows, that I would stay up late and just record them and have headphones on in my bed and just wait for like those late shows to come out. Even we had a station down in University of Rhode Island, 90.3, and they used to play death metal. They would play like techno, like weird shit that you would not hear on the radio. But all that opened doors. And because that opened doors, people started to have more access to it. And then it became more popular. And the more popular it became, and the more people that filled, the clubs in, that's when you started to see stuff like Ozfest and, a radio station playing your song and actually opening that door for you because if the right person heard it and they were hip to what was going on, then yeah, that would lead you to getting maybe a record deal or second stage at Ozfest or whatever. And all that stuff snowballed. And I started to see that with my own eyes. And that's when it went from just being, I'm punk rock, this is my lifestyle, don't care about fame and fortune, to like, I really hate my job. I'm so tired of my boss. I love this music. There's a way to actually make money. Oh shit, now I kind of want a career. Like I kind of want this. And then once that's dangled in front of you, for me at least, I was like, that's all I can see. Tunnel vision. It didn't matter what I was doing, what job I had or what jobs I had, because I did 3 jobs at one point. I was always going to gig. I was always going to be there on stage because I needed it. It was like a drug.
You talk about, the idea of like having a 25, 26-year career and coming up in this vibrant metal scene. But there's also this humbling moment too, when you open up for Iron Maiden, right? These guys that are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
You guys have been a band for 26 years and they're like, that's cute, kids. We've been doing it for 50. when you look at metal and the pillars of the pantheon of metal, what was it like to tour with guys like that? Because that's the gold standard in so many ways.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I think what's great about it is, you mentioned the idea of like, oh, that's cute kid. The great thing about Iron Maiden is there's none of that attitude. It is so like arms around your shoulders. Welcome to the fold. This is going to be a great tour. Day one, because we've done more than one tour with Iron Maiden. Awesome. We've done, I think, 3 if you split up the European leg we did. Day one, it was Trooper beer, cases of Trooper beer, bottles of champagne, a letter welcoming us to the tour. And then just Bruce Dickinson walking into our dressing room, just dressed plain clothes, no outfits on or whatever. Didn't even know it was him. I'm sitting there in the dressing room playing my Nintendo Switch, just exhausted from the flight. And there's this guy in cargo shorts, boots, and disheveled hair with a hooded sweatshirt on, just like standing there. Like in my mind, is like, oh, he's delivering like our rider. I don't know. And you could feel the air in the dressing room change. People were sitting up, and I'm like, oh, that's Bruce Dickinson. Okay. And he's like, hey, just welcome to the tour. Good to have you on. My son's a big fan. Like just being a guy. And from that point on, it just got better and better. People get to know your name. You're walking through the hallway out of your tour bus to go take a shower and have lovely catering. Their catering's incredible. So they fed us well. They treated us well. And they couldn't have been more generous and kind. And whenever you saw them in the hallways, eye contact, hello, how's it going? Everyone treating you good? You doing all right? This is my assistant. If you ever need anything, talk to him. And we're just like, awesome, sweet. Just encouraging the whole way. It was awesome. They employ 120 people at one point, and most of those people just became friends. We've toured with bigger bands and we've gotten treated like garbage. Iron Maiden were like just class. And this last run we did with them in Australia, it was like coming home again. Just incredible. I can't say enough about them. And they just go out there and kill it every single night. And Bruce in his 60s just doesn't miss it. He's just incredible. They're a huge inspiration to all of us.
One of the most surreal moments of my radio career, AAF used to have this little security guard. He was a Pakistani immigrant. His name was Ash, and he was awesome. Wore a suit. Anytime anybody came to the radio station, they had to call us in the studio to tell us that they were there. And Ash called me on the hotline, and he's like, there's a man named Bruce Dickinson here to see you. Can I let him upstairs? And I'm like, Ash, that's Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. And then Bruce Dickinson comes up in the elevator, and Ash made him give him his ID so that he could give him a little sticker that showed, and his name, it said Bruce Dickinson on the visitor badge so that he could come upstairs. And we were like, this is the weirdest thing. But he brought his son with him, who was an early teenager at the time. And his son was hanging out in the studio. He was sitting next to Bruce. And of course, I'm on the air making like Jesus Christ himself just walked in the studio because it's Bruce Dickinson.
Right.
And his kid is like giggling under his breath. And I'm like, can I turn his mic on? And Bruce was like, yeah, go ahead. And I'm like, what's so funny? And with his little British accent, he was like, I just don't understand why everyone makes such a big deal out of my dad. And I was like, but your dad's Bruce Dickinson. And he's like, yeah, and he's Bruce Dickinson when he's running around the house in his undies singing. And I was like, that is an image I never thought I was ever getting. And I got it from Bruce Dickinson's kid. But, you're not cool to everybody. You're somebody's dad.
The great thing about Bruce, though, from what I've gathered, just being around him and seeing him in interviews, he's creative, he's wild, but he's still got that genuine down-to-earthness about him. He does. They all do, even, all those guys. I would see every single one of them. We've had moments where I'm like, they're just a real dude. And that's great. I love that because there are people with half of their sort of talent and fame that are total jackasses. I won't name names, but I've been around those people and I'm like, what is your deal? Like, come on, man. To me, that just reeks insecurity. But when you're an Iron Maiden, like, you have the license to be a jerk if you wanted to be, and they're not.
Yeah.
And to me, that just makes them hero status. I love that. And I'll tell you this, it really bled off on me personally. I've always been kind, but after that first Maiden tour, when we would have opening bands, I would go and show face into those rooms and welcome them to the tour, say my name. Like, I made a point to do it. So I really took not just watching them perform and seeing how they were on stage, because my stage movements got bigger. I became a better frontman from witnessing how they do it. But it was also the demeanor behind the stage and how you treat other people. And that's the gold standard for me, Iron Maiden style. So treat opening bands, even if you don't even know who they are, you just, this young band, they're locals, the promoter wants them on. Sure. Still, what's up? Hey, I'm Jesse from Killswitch. Thanks for playing the show. To me, that's the way I do it from now on because of Iron Maiden.
Dave Grohl said that Dimebag Darrell taught him that lesson.
Hell yeah, Dimebag, rest in peace. What a beautiful, amazing, talented human being. I've never had the chance to hang with him, but everyone I know that has, they have nothing but amazing stuff to say about him. Him and Vinny, both just incredible humans.
Those two in a room, the air was fun. Like everything, they just walked in the room and everything became fun. I have a great picture. Dimebag and I got into a Sharpie fight. He used to take caps off of Sharpies and he'd walk by you and stab you with them. So by the end of the night, you'd be covered with freckles. And he had a black eye. I don't know. I still, to this day, I don't think I remember exactly how he got it. But he had a black eye and he drew a black eye on me with a Sharpie. And I have this great picture of me and Dime with matching black eyes. Like, he was just one of those people.
Yeah, we have two of those in our band, Joel and Adam. When they get drunk, it's the atmosphere of fun goes up a few notches. Yeah. So late night on the tour bus, if I see those two are up drinking, it's like, if I know I don't have shit to do tomorrow, if we have a day off, I'll stay up and hang with those guys. Jokes, even just the music that they play is hysterical. They go down these rabbit holes of 80s hair metal and like Weird Al Yankovic, and just it's fun. They're just fun to be around.
Rumor has it Weird Al's in contention for nomination into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. And Morello actually said that if Iron Maiden doesn't get in this year, he's going to gnaw his arm off like a coyote in a trap. He called that the most egregious omission from the Rock Hall, that Maiden's not in there.
Yeah, of course. But, we all know that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all those sort of awards, it's like a popularity contest. I mean, it's insane to me that you can even talk about a Hall of Fame and not have Iron Maiden, a band that have just thrived and survived without the need of radio or any of that. They have this hardcore audience that will follow them till their grave, no matter what. If you want to talk about a legacy, there's not many bands that can say that about themselves. And Iron Maiden are definitely up there. And you're right. I mean, if this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing is actually based on popularity and fan popularity and legacy, they should have been in there long time ago. I got to ask you about your collaboration with the guys from Blackstone Cherry, because one of the stations I'm on is The Bone in Portland, Maine, and we're playing that song all the time. It comes up all the time on the show. Really, in the last couple years, rock and metal has really embraced featuring on other artists' songs, something that hip hop has been doing for years. But it really feels like more recently, rock and metal, I don't know if it started to understand the power of it or just decided to kind of come out of the halos. Like, what is it? Because there have been some amazing collaborations in the last couple of years. Yeah, I like that you mentioned that, because I'm a huge old school hip hop fan as well. And they have been doing it for decades. And I've made it a point. Currently right now, I've got about 12 collaborations in my email inbox right now. And I love it, because I'm doing not just, you mentioned Blackstone Cherry, love those boys. And it's an interesting collaboration because they're a hard blues band. And I'm on that track singing, but I'm also screaming. And it's different for them. They've never had anything like that. They've never had a guest vocalist. So to me, it was such an honor, because what an incredible live band that band is. And they're a bunch of just good dudes. But, I've done some death metal stuff. I've done some grindcore. I love it. I think metal needs to do more of that, because all it's going to do is cross promote. I like doing these things because I only do collaborations with bands I like. And some of these bands, like one I just finished was a band called OTOO, which I'd never even heard of them. They sent me the track and I was like, this is brilliant. I was like, what is this? They're from Australia. They're fairly well unknown. And because I sang on their track, somehow through the algorithm, people are going to hear them more because my name is attached to it. I love that. I want people to discover new music, but also it gives me sort of a little bit of cred too. Like I'm working with an obscure band. Like I love that. So to me, the cross promotion, all about it. I think metal needs to start doing a lot more of that. It's fun. Why not?
I mean, in the same year, Ann Wilson from Heart collabed with Disturbed and Jelly Roll collabed with Falling in Reverse. It was like these amazing, out-of-the-box, interesting guest appearances, and they've all been really successful. The audience seems to love it.
Yeah, I think go out on a limb, take chances, take risks. It's fun. Worst case scenario, it's a song that doesn't do so well, but at least you tried. Like stop playing it safe with music, especially rock. Like I think rock music more than anything, rock and metal. Like we need to like start really pushing the boundaries here. And we are. I think we are. But again, like it's for our culture, it's for our scene, it's for like the betterment and the progression of what we're all doing. And there shouldn't be any limitations on it.
I talk about Portland. You guys are going to be up there at the Cross Insurance Arena April 12th, and another New England date down in New Haven, Connecticut, a few days before on April 8th. So you're getting ready to head back out on the road. It's going to be busy for you this year. New record, big tour.
Yeah, tours. Yeah, that's the one we announced, but we're booked solid for next year. And if I have my way, we'll be booked solid the next year after that. I would love to make a world tour of this record. It's an honor and a privilege, and you mentioned we've been around for 26 years, so I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do this for. Hopefully many more, but...
Oh, come on. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards said that 60 years ago.
Yeah, Mick Jagger doesn't scream, though, but yeah. No, for me, like, let's get it while it's getting hot, and I love this record. I totally stand behind it. I believe in it, and I think it's an exciting time for music, and for us as an older band, to be able to put out a record that we all feel pushed us. We really pushed hard on this. It feels fresh to me as an artist. It feels real. I can still listen to the record and go, yeah, I wouldn't change that. That's a good feeling. So to me, I want to bring that to the masses. And the live experience is what it's all about. That's where that connection between us and the fans really happens. And not even just with the performance, which is amazing, but what happens around the performances, the meet and greets, or even just my favorite, and we did this a lot in Australia, we get off stage, watch some Maiden, and then go to our hotels, go to the pub nearby the hotel. And of course, when Iron Maiden plays a city, the whole city's Iron Maiden. So we're hanging out with fans, and we're having beers, and we're elbow to elbow with other metalheads. To me, that's what tour is too. It's not just about the shows, it's going out and hanging out with people. Like I don't hide. Unless I've got 3 or 4 shows in a row, I'm not going out. But if I don't, I love going out and meeting people or standing out in front of the bus and having conversations. That's where the connection happens. That's where the magic happens, where the fans get to see, like, this is just us. We're just dudes making music, and we're so grateful that we still get to do this after all these years. And it's because of the fans.
Where have you traveled to around the world that you surprised you loved as much as you did?
Oh, surprised. I don't know if I would use the word surprised, because I'm surprised anytime we go somewhere and it's the fans connect.
But I mean, like, culturally for you as a person, like, where did you fall in love with the food or the architecture or just the overall vibe of it? Because rock musicians are some of the best and well-traveled people on the planet.
Yeah, I have to say Germany. It's this nagging country that just keeps popping up in my head. I could say other exotic places, but it feels like a second home when we go to Germany. The audiences are incredible. And I like German fans because there's not a lot of bullshit there. They'll tell you what they think, and I like that.
Well, it's like being a New Englander.
Exactly, going back to our roots.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you want to talk about architecture. Like, I love their old cathedrals there. The sort of gothiness that's in a lot of that culture. And then German beer, man, that's one of the only beers I still drink as an older guy. I mean, not only can I digest it better, let's be real, but it's just classic beer. Like, there's no better beer to me than a good German Hefeweizen. And then going to their beer gardens and like pretzels and beer and mustard, like what a magical combination. So yeah, food culture, people, architecture, all of it, man. Germany, all the way. I love touring in Germany.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you two questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show. The first is a craft and songwriting question. It's about looking at a song from any artist, any genre, and as a songwriter yourself going, that song is perfectly written. I wish I wrote that. Is there an example for you?
Oh, I'd say almost anything Gojira has done in the past few records. To me, they're elite tier songwriting, performance-wise, lyrical content, what they stand for. I will always put Gojira on a pedestal when you talk about metal music. I think they're just doing it right. And there's definitely moments where I'll watch that band or hear a song and I'm like, oh, it's so good. How could they do that?
They're on the tip of everybody's tongue now because of the Olympics. That was insane.
I loved him before that on that level, but that was insane. Absolutely. And then in the same breath, a band that's lesser known, a band called Decapitated. If you're a death metal fan, they, to me, are the finest death metal band. And they're only a 4-piece. I watched them side stage somewhere in Europe and was just jaw on the floor. Not only because they're just intense and damn near perfect live, but the fact that they're a 4-piece and they sound as massive as they do, incredible. And they, again, humble guys, super sweet. But if you're a death metal fan, Decapitated are incredible. And their lyrics, too, are intelligent. It's not just about gore and death, which is great. But yeah, those two bands come to mind of just bands that I'm like, wow, those guys are doing it right. Incredible. Like God tier music.
I got to ask you the geezer question. That's what I call it. I blame Geezer Butler. He came on the show and let it slip that he had 13 cats and 5 dogs. And when I asked him how he kept them all straight and how he named them all, he told me that they're all named after gangster rappers and proceeded to list all of his pet names named after gangster rappers. Biggie, Snoop, Missy, all of them. So I have to ask every artist now about your pets and where they're named from, but I blame Geezer for this question.
Okay, well, I have 2 cats, but when I met my wife, she had them already. So I can't take credit for their names. But I will say this, though. They've become a huge staple in my life. I interact with them on a regular basis. You know, I sing songs to them. I have different names, you know, full-on cat dad. Love them. And what I like about cats is they have attitude. So one's sort of the grumpy grandma. Her name is Lillian or Lily. And she's the one that like hangs out in the bedroom, will crawl in between us as we're sleeping. She's sweet, but she's grumpy. If she doesn't like you or know you, she'll hiss at you. And then we have Boots, who's a tuxedo cat with white paws, Boots. And Boots is the social one. If we have company over, she's there. She's rubbing on people. She wants the attention. But if people aren't around, she hides. We call her the goth cat. She'll stay in the shadows. Funny thing is, too, if I play The Cure, Depeche Mode, any type of that kind of music, I swear to you, she'll crawl out of the shadows and just come hang out and listen and look out the window and take in the music. So they're 2 very unique little creatures. Their attitude makes me laugh on a regular basis because, you know, unlike dogs just give it all to you. That's unconditional love. You really have to earn a cat's affection. So yeah, they've become my best friends. I hate to say it. It sounds so nerdy and dorky, but hey, man.
That's why I asked that question, because it's a very straight. Ronnie Radke said on the show that you can't trust people that like don't like their animals. Like if you don't like dogs or something, I can't trust you. And
Yeah.
he's kind of right. His other criteria was that if you didn't like Bohemian Rhapsody, you can't be trusted either.
Fair enough. I will say this, though. If anyone were to catch while I'm home alone, especially when my wife's out working, if I'm home alone, catch me like singing or talking to my cats, it would be its own reality show. People would be, they would see me in a different light. It's hysterical.
You might be able to get a GoPro and charge people to watch that on the internet.
I would never do that to myself.
Well, the new album, This Consequence, comes out on February 21st. You're going to be at the Cross Insurance Arena in Portland on April 12th, a few days before down in New Haven, Connecticut on April 8th. It's going to be a big year for Killswitch, and I'm so grateful for all of your time today and you hanging out with me. It was so nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And all hails to you. Thanks for doing what you do for all these years as well. Celebrate you.
There he is, Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage. This Consequence, the new album from the band, comes out on February 21st, and you can see them live on their headlining tour at the Cross Insurance Arena in Portland, Maine on April 12th. Those tickets are on sale now. You can hear their new single, Forever Aligned, in the corresponding playlist for this episode. I make a playlist for every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that features my guest music and all the artists and songs that we referenced in the interview. You'll find it linked in the show notes of this episode. You'll also find all the links to find Jesse Leach, Killswitch Engage, and of course the Mistress Carrie links. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and comment on the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday you get the sit rep. The Situation Report gives you all of your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates in about 5 minutes. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. Join me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern for my weekly streaming video show, Cocktails in the War Room. And you can always listen to me on the radio. Get the details on all of that and more at MistressCarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie Podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.